Hi, thanks for letting me come here. So this little project is taking the point of view that in order to understand a system, it could be informative to really look at the ways in which it fails. And so let me tell you one common observation across many working memory recall tasks. And the tasks are something like this. You see a few stimuli, and after a certain amount of time, you're told to report one cued by space or some other feature. And here's a kind of distribution that's very common. So you can see it's very centered around the target, but also there's a surprisingly large number of very large errors, like the total opposite of what you're supposed to do. And this requires some explaining because you can't get that from just Gaussian response noise. And the most common explanation is that sometimes you just forget, and when you forget, you take a random guess. It looks kind of uniform. And that, as I said, is kind of the dominant view. But recently, a paper from Tim Brady's lab suggested a slightly more maybe unified, strange explanation, which is that rather than just remembering or forgetting, you're just always a little bit confused. And we're going to tell you our take on that. So here it is. So you're always going to try and remember a certain number of things, and they're going to compete for a place in your memory. And so when you see a stimulus X, there's a lot of other possible memories, and they have a certain psychological similarity to X. You know, you see blue, but like green maybe is a little similar, I don't know. And then the thing that you actually remember is just the memory which happens to be most similar to the stimulus. And of course, that's going to be X in this case. But if there's noise, oh no, now it's different. And economists know that under certain technical assumptions, the resulting distribution of the actual memories in our case, or decisions in their case, is a softmax. And it has one parameter, which is the signal-to-noise ratio beta. And so that's it. That's a very tidy model. And we're going to see how well we can apply it to some real data. You can hear me okay? Yeah. So we had monkeys doing very similar tasks to the one I described before. You see some colors, you see a cue, you have to respond. They make the classic kind of heavy-tailed error distribution. And above the things that the previous studies, we recorded from single neurons across the brain. Okay, and to begin with, I'm going to try to fit the behavior with this sort of psychophysical similarity idea using just a Gaussian kernel, plus gumball noise, and there's these two parameters, the width of the Gaussian and the SNR. We can sweep across them just with brute force and find some optimal values. And then this is what's different from what has been done before, which is we have access to the representations. And so for a bunch of different x's, we can get a similarity with this, the dot product similarity between the stimulus and various other competing stimuli. And then it turns out that the average of this empirically measured kernel passed through the softmax does a pretty good job of matching the behavioral distribution. And what's remarkable is that the width that you get, or sorry, the signal-to-noise ratio that you get from fitting that is very similar to the one that you get from the behavioral fit alone. So I guess to summarize this, across many different cross-validation folds, the model makes similar predictions from a purely psychophysical point of view as opposed to a neural point of view. And so one last thing that I won't have time to explain, but we can talk more about at the poster, is that the whole other half is about trying to show how this same framework can be used to explain other commonly observed features of single neuron tuning. The punchline of that is that, in many areas of the brain, you observe that neurons are tuned to different degrees, and that can also explain some of these naturalistic behaviors. And so with that, I'd like to thank my co-authors, Jeff, who is a postdoc in the Fusi lab with me, a grad student, Matt Panichello and Tim Bushman, who collected the data while they were at Princeton, Stefano Fusi, my advisor, my colleagues at Columbia, with whom I had important discussions, and of course our support in the lab.